Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining our webinar today. I'm Dhruv Singhal, the founder of Open Gears, as well as a junior at Waubonsie Valley High School. And it's great to see that many of you are interested in listening to the speaker today. And I hope that once again, our first event of 2022 provides you with new insight and new knowledge about careers in medicine. Figuring out what I wanted to do in the future was a problem for me personally. So I also encourage you to check our library of recorded webinars on YouTube to gain a unique insight into other careers. And the link to the YouTube channel is on our website, theopengears.com. I would now like to welcome our speaker today, Shreyaa Khanna. Shreyaa is a graduate of Waubonsie Valley High School and a current senior at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. She is currently studying molecular and cellular biology and has a minor in informatics and is currently on the pre-medical track. She is more than happy to help prospective pre-medical students with what she did during her high school years and her involvement during her undergraduate years. Before we start, I want to remind again that please do not hesitate to write any questions in the chat, whether you decide to unmute or just write them in the chat. Thank you so much, Shreyaa, for taking time out of your busy schedule to help inspire us to pursue your STEM field. And without further ado, please give Shreyaa your undivided attention and a warm virtual round of applause.
All right. So thank you for that introduction. That was, I've never been introduced like that, so it was really cool. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you guys for having me. This is a great thing. I honestly I wish I had something like this when I was like a junior, senior in high school, but I'm just curious, so I can cater my discussion to the best of my ability. I was wondering, where everyone, like, are you, like, what grade you're in, or like on behalf of who, if you guys want to just like unmute because I can't really see the chat box, and just let me know like how old you guys are or your kids or anything like that.
Yeah, and feel free to turn on your video as well. You want to see faces and not blank screens. And write in the chat too where you're from. Like, I'm sorry, what grade you're in. What year you're in school you're in. Yeah.
So I can't really see the chat, but if Dhruv, if you want to like read up any
One is
response.
a parent of a junior. And but again, like most of these guys are high school students, middle school students.
Okay. Okay, so all right, so I'll just start by introducing a little bit about myself. So this is me. I'm from Naperville, Illinois. I was brought up in Aurora, but we moved to Naperville when I was like 14 years old. So graduated from Waubonsie Valley, like Drew said, in 2018. And now I'm a senior at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And I'm majoring in molecular and cellular biology. And I'm also minoring in informatics, which is something I forgot to include. But yeah, so now in the future, I'm looking into taking a gap year. And then in the spring, I will be putting together my med school applications. So
Can you talk a little bit about what a gap year is?
yeah, so for the medical profession, a lot of students, I would say about half of the people who apply to med school um, take a gap year in between, maybe to get some different experiences. The process asks a lot of you, and sometimes it's hard to do that within 3 years. Traditionally, people will apply at the end of their junior year so they can start med school immediately after they graduate college, which is it's normal, but there's also like me and like a lot of my friends and like people I've seen have also decided to take gap years. So that's I'll talk more about it and what I'm specifically planning on doing, but there's a ton of things that you could do in your gap year, and it's all meant to enhance your application. And during the process you can talk a little bit about what you're doing that's different from school.
So it's
So
almost
yeah.
a year of, just exploration that you can add onto your application then, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I see.
So yeah. So I thought I could maybe go into a little bit of like the curriculum that I experienced, like what classes I took and stuff like that. So Again, totally informal. You can unmute yourself and ask questions. I encourage you to. And yeah, so I will get into it. This is just, yeah. So off the top of my head, these are the classes that I took in high school. So AP Bio, AP Chem, pretty standard for someone like me who's a molecular and cellular biology major. Glad I took those classes. AP Calc, I took AB my junior year. I'm not a math person. I didn't like it. So I just decided that I didn't want to do any more than that. Like I go into like Calc BC or Calc 3. So, I mean, luckily my field doesn't really ask for a lot of math. So I lucked out there. AP Lang and Lit, I really enjoyed. So always loved English. Glad I took those classes. Same with Euro, same with Psych. And then environmental science, also really loved it. It was a little bit easier and, nice to have in my senior year schedule. AP Human Geography, it feels like I took this class ages ago. Like
Yeah.
it was more like a peer pressure class to, add a little bit of rigor into my schedule, which I knew nothing my freshman year of high school taking this class, but
Yeah.
there are times when sometimes you're like, well, my friends are taking it, so I should take it too. And
Yeah.
then AP Stats, I took my senior year because I didn't really want to do math. What, did you have a question?
I don't think anybody had a question. Or
I heard
somebody.
something. Yeah, stats I took my senior year, and then AP computer science. I took this class my sophomore year, and I honestly debated even putting it on the list because I really, really did not like it. It was like I dreaded walking into the classroom. It was boring to me. I didn't get it. I just thought like, both of my parents are like in IT, so maybe this is like I have tutoring help at home and, I'll fly through class. It was not the case. It was difficult and just realized that it wasn't my thing. So
Yeah, I mean that's a good thing too, if you take a class and then you don't like it, at least that's like one, box cop.
it's really a good thing. It's
Yeah.
honestly, and I talked about it in my college apps as well, because, sometimes they ask you like, what was an experience that made you decide? Well, this was an experience that helped me decide what I didn't want to do, which I think is just as good because it narrows it down.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, so then from then on, I took classes that I was like, well, I think I would like this. So I took anatomy and physiology. And that was like I remember my junior year, I took anatomy and we had like a field trip to a cadaver lab, which is like a cadaver lab is like people who give their bodies up for science after death, and they're taken apart and they're used for medical education. And that was really the experience that told me what I wanted to do, because it was just so cool. And not only that, it was like I had a little more respect for the field as well. So yeah, also what I wrote about in my Common App essay. So these little moments are really important to like take note of. And when you realize you like something or you don't like something, that's all part of creating your application and having admissions committees understand who you are as a person. So yeah, and then creative writing was also a class that I took. Just I always loved to write, and that was like a nice little break in my day, in between all of like the AP classes. I could just like kind of, it was like a therapeutic time. So yeah, so this was just my high school curriculum. Do you guys have any questions so far for me on anything else I might have done?
What was one of the hardest classes you've taken?
I would say, well, computer science was hard for me just because I didn't get it. Like, I
Yeah.
really tried in that class, and I think that would be the hardest one I took. It was really just not for me. So
Right. Especially if you don't like the class, then
then
it.
it's, yeah, you could, it makes sense. You do better in classes that you enjoy. So yeah, I would like dread going into class. I would dread studying for it. It was just a bad thing. But those things help you realize in the end. So I don't regret taking it, but not fun.
All right.
And then I have a little piece of advice. Explore your options in high school. That's, I think, why high school exists, is like for you to try all of these things and figure out what you like and what you don't like. Um, if you were here earlier, my little sister's a junior right now in high school, and I tell her the exact same thing. I'm like, use this time, figure it out. You know, you don't have to know exactly what you want to do, but just get an idea, because, you know, we'll work out the kinks in college. It's just, I like this, I don't like this. Try and figure that out. And also, important thing is what works for somebody else might not work for you. So, like, I'm sitting in front of you talking about what classes I took and what I did. And this is all, you know, if you choose to take my advice, that's great. But in the end, you're going to have to see what works best for you. And this may not be it. So, this is just taking the time to figure out what you like is really, really important.
One
And
person wanted.
also, you know,
Oh,
so,
sorry. One person wanted to know how many APs you would suggest for a freshman student.
I would say for freshmen, I only took one. I don't think it's very common to take more than one, because if I remember correctly, it was mostly honors classes. It was like honors bio, honors chem sophomore year, and then like honors world history and like stuff like that. So
Yeah.
honors English. I don't think you can take APs. You have to fill your prerequisites first, and for some for some reason, my prerequisites for human geo were filled by a class I took in middle school. So I ended up having that be my only AP class my freshman year.
Yeah, that was me too
And
freshman
then
year. I also took AP Human freshman year, so that was my only AP that I had.
I think it's a common thing, you know, you
Yeah,
see AP, you kind of just want to take it. You're like, oh.
yeah. I mean, that dude also varies per school. Like some schools have different requirements, some other schools have different flexibility policies. But typically,
Yeah, and
like I said, just probably go like one or two APs, maybe. But like, don't try to like put too much burden on yourself freshman
yeah,
year.
exactly. And I will say this, a lot of universities actually don't take AP credit from human geo anymore.
Yeah,
I know my university didn't take it, so it really isn't that big of a deal if you don't take AP Human your freshman year, because
yeah.
there you don't really get any benefits from the AP aspect of it. So
Mhm.
yeah. So yeah. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit about what I've been up to now these past 4 years now. So yeah. Um, like I said, I'm a senior on the pre-med track. Just gonna get into like what the pre-med expectations are in college, and specifically at U of I. It's pretty common to be an MCB major, which is Molecular and Cellular Biology. So U of I does something different where you can't just be a biology major. They make you choose between two kinds of biology. So your freshman year, you come in as a bio major, but you're taking MCB 150 and IB 150. So MCB is like molecular cellular, and then IB is integrative biology. So that's more ecosystems, plants, and all that stuff. And MCB is more like molecules and like DNA and stuff like that. Um, so they make you take both, and then at the end of your freshman year, you decide which concentration basically you want to go into. So I chose MCB just because I thought it was cooler than IB.
I see. So
Just
you
enjoyed
applied
the
as a
course.
biology major then,
Yep,
right? But then after your freshman year, you just chose to focus on the molecular
yep.
path.
They don't let you be just a regular bio major. You can be biochemistry, you can be bioengineering. Those are different majors, but if you can't just be regular bio.
I see.
So yeah. Just some of the required courses. So you have your gen eds, which your AP classes will get you out of a lot of gen eds. They got me out of a lot of mine, but they still do make you take some more once you get to campus. So for one gen chem, I think everyone I know took gen chem. There's probably like maybe 1,000 students taking gen chem at the same time. Like,
Doesn't AP Chem credit satisfy that though?
yeah, so that was another thing I was going to address. If it pertains to your major, they say to not use your credits on it. So even though I had chem credit, and I had bio credit from AP Bio, they told me you should take it again because those are foundational level classes and it might be taught differently. They might go into some things and elaborate more on some concepts, and in the future when you take more difficult classes you might not totally understand it. I will say this, Gen Chem was really similar to AP Chem. I did a lot of the same stuff, so it was kind of nice. I was like, well, I did it again, and now I'm just doing it for college credit. But I will say 100 MCB 150 was the class I took that helped me decide to be an MCB major. It was nothing like AP Bio. It was way more detailed. It was definitely harder, and nothing like AP Bio. So I'm really glad I didn't use my credit there. And then they'd make you take, as a pre-med, they make you take one math class. So my options were Calc 2, which is AP Calc BC, or biostatistics. And I'm not a math person, so I took biostatistics. It was really simple, not a bad class at all. So yeah, and those are just your gen eds. And then you have a bit more, you have like your cultural ones, you have your humanities, social sciences, and all that stuff. So
How many humanities classes did you have to take over the years?
well, let me think. Well, I had to take some because for pre-med they recommend, and when they say recommend, that means do it. They recommend you take like sociology and psychology. So I did take a couple psych classes and social classes that fulfilled my humanities gen ed requirement. But I took medical ethics. I think that was one of them. That was a really cool class. And yeah, and then just like the recommended pre-med ones also fulfilled humanities. A really interesting class that I took for my minority and non-Western class credit was South Asian literature, where we actually like got into like the Gita, and like we were not translating it, we were reading the translation of the Gita, and we were talking about like the Indus Valley civilization and like how literature in Southern Asia evolved, and like it was probably one of my favorites. I think like just totally a fun chill class, and I learned so much, so really like that one.
What about elective spaces? Are
Sorry.
there What about electives opportunities?
um so you can take classes just for fun. I know people who have. There are definitely classes like that exist. There is like ice skating 101. There's how to barbecue, like some crazy classes. But generally, between your major, your gen eds, and maybe if you want to do a minor, you don't want to overload yourself. And what I've seen is that like if I try to take a class for fun, I've ended up having to drop it because I don't have time for it. And I usually have to spend more time, working for like with my other classes, like
Right.
homework and studying and all that. So that does take up a lot of your time. But that's not to say that you shouldn't, because I think, like me as a senior now, my schedule's opened up a lot. So I probably could have taken like a fun class this semester, but I just wanted to have like a chill, do nothing semester. So yeah, you totally can. I know so many people who took ice skating and said it was just like so much fun. But yeah. And then also if you pick up a minor that you enjoy, those end up being like fun classes for
Yeah.
you.
So, like, could you talk a little bit more about the minor you're taking in informatics? Like, how does it
Yeah.
work? The minor and then the major that you.
So yeah, so you basically have to declare your minor. You can't just like start taking classes for your minor. Your university will list out all the classes you need to take to fulfill your minor. They're called minors because they're way less work than a major. And mine specifically is informatics. So technically I would be a bioinformatics major and minor. Mine was basically just looking at like the tech applications of biology. So I thought that was pretty cool. It's really not, for me, it's not that detailed. It's not too in depth. It's 3 classes that are required. and then 3 more classes, and I can choose out from like a list, like which 3 classes I want to take.
Mhm.
Minors usually end up being like that. So like a certain sequence of courses that are only like that are required, and then you have like a sequence of courses that you can choose from. And as long as you fulfill the credit requirement, you get the minor.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
do you want
people
to
usually
like
huh?
go ahead with what you're saying. Sorry.
I was gonna say people usually declare around their like sophomore or junior year, like what minor they want to do. But there are people also freshmen who come in, like I came in really enjoying writing, and I was like, well, maybe I want to be like a creative writing minor.
Mhm.
Um, after doing my research, I realized that those classes are a lot of work, and you have to put a lot of time into them. And sometimes it's hard being STEM and also, liberal arts, because there are different parts of your brain that you're using, and you have to put a lot of time into each of those things. So I found informatics to align the easiest with my course load. What was your question?
So in your informatics major, are you doing like a lot of coding and stuff? So like how exactly is technology being used in that informatics major minor that you're doing?
So yeah, so informatics is a minor only on this campus. It's not a major, but
Oh yeah.
in my minor, we take very rudimentary level coding. Like I said, CS was not my thing. So that was one of the main things I was like, I don't want to do this. And then I talked to a lot of people, and they said there was one class that I took that was like super foundational Python. And I think it was fine. Like it was really easy. um, Aside from that, most of the informatics classes just teach you about what it means to apply technology to a field. So there's like informatics with like actual tech, and then there's like informatics with like biology. There's informatics with sociology and statistics and like all kinds of different things. So for me, like I took a class on like building like it would see again, you don't really do much of this stuff. You just talk about like you learn about the applications. So for me, it was like genome, like building different like genome sequences, and like looking at how you can build like trees, like phylogenetic trees from these mutations and like sequences like that. So it's really just application based, not like you're doing any of it. But I think it's fun to learn about, and it's definitely good information, because when you say like you're an informatics minor, a lot of people are like, so why did you choose to do that? And in my research, which I'll talk about later, it ties in. So a lot of the stuff that I learned will apply to like some of the research that I've done.
That's perfect. Just another quick question. So a student attending the webinar is interested in pursuing genetics. So the student wants to know that out of AP Physics, AP Chem, and AP Bio, which 2 APs should the student take for genetics major?
Um,
Genetics, yeah.
okay, I would say chem and bio, to be honest, because genetics. So genetics is actually we take part of our MCB core sequence. We have to take genetics. It's required for med school. It's required for my major. Um, so I would say take chem and take bio. Bio because genetics is biology, and chem because you will have to take chem if you're a genetics major, most likely. Um, and it just comes in handy to knock your gen eds out of the way. And academically, genetics is essentially biochemistry. Like if you're looking at DNA, central dogma, that kind of thing, you have to understand fundamental chemistry to get into genetics. I hope
Yeah,
that answered your question.
yeah, I agree too from like my personal experience because genetics is kind of like a medicine related field. So definitely take the biochemistry to gain the background knowledge before you dive deeper.
Yeah, that's important. But yeah, thanks
Okay.
for the question. Yeah, so after my gen eds, I get into my MCB classes. They make you take, like I said, genetics, and then we took cell and tissue development. Those were some of the foundational level MCB courses after MCB 150. And then you also take MCB lab, and then you take Orgo and Orgo lab, which Orgo always gets a really bad reputation, but it's honestly, for me, it wasn't bad in the sense that I was like, I hate it, it sucks, like computer science. Not like that at all. Like, it was very much, you're able to get it. It's like a mechanism type of thing, you know. It takes a lot of practice, it takes a lot of work, but I think it's one of the most rewarding classes. Like, I think, like, if you do well in it, you're like, okay, like, I feel like I earned this A, like, for sure. Put in like a lot of hours. But yeah, and then physics for me, like I said, for physics, math, like, I'm not that person. And I will own up to that, but I didn't want to take it on campus. They require it for pre-meds, but only because it's on the MCAT. So you can actually take physics if you're pre-med, not at your home campus. So I just took it like at a community college and just like got it out of the way. It was literally just a prerequisite. But yeah, not bad at all. And then biochemistry, definitely really hard class. I would say even harder than Orgo. It's combining Orgo with all the biological knowledge that you know. So biochemistry, so like you said, genetics, biochemistry is genetics. Like, it takes that, genetics is part of it. You know, everything in your body is chemistry. So yeah, you're looking at that on a different level, and it's so concept heavy, and it's a lot of work. And it's not even like you can do practice problems and get better. It's like you just have to understand it, like, as you go, and, you know, just nail those foundational concepts in your head. So, and then another thing, really big thing required, is the MCAT. So for me, that's coming up in March. So I'm gonna hopefully check that one off my list. And research, another thing that's recommended, I would say do research. Everyone I know who's pre-med has done a lot of research. If you have any questions on that, I am happy to answer as much as I can, because I've been doing research since freshman year. I didn't include too much because I didn't want to confuse anyone, but if you are interested, just let me know, and we can talk about it. And then other extracurriculars, as a pre-med, there's quite a bit of a checklist. It's like you have to be this kind of person and this kind of person, and then you just gotta like go along, check all the boxes. You know, volunteering, do you have clinical volunteering, do you have non-clinical volunteering, do you have RSO, and like maybe like, were you involved in a fraternity, were you involved in a club? So those things matter a lot. And then yeah, so throughout your experiences, hopefully you talk to some mentors and you get people who can vouch for you, and that's where you get your rec letters from. And you're probably familiar with them because you need them for college apps and stuff. So yeah, this is an extensive list, but it's not meant to intimidate anyone. It's very much like, you have 4 years, you will do it, you know, it's okay. So yeah. Does anyone have any questions on this?
Could you talk a little bit more about the MCAT and exactly like what kinds of things it covers on the test?
Yeah. So the MCAT is 4 sections. It's chemistry, physics is the first section. Then you have critical thinking, which is like just reading passages and answering questions. And then you have your biology section, which is biochemistry kind of lumped in. And then you have your psychology and sociology section. So 4 sections. It's a 7.5-hour test. It's long. It's mentally grueling, but you know, with a lot of hard work, you can do it. You know, it's, for me, like, I have rescheduled my MCAT because I'm like, I just don't feel ready, which it's kind of like it's like a mental battle almost. But you know, so March, I will
Yeah.
be done with that.
Good luck with that. Wishing you all the
Thank
best.
you. Thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah, Shreya, so this is nice that you're kind of offering your support to the other kids based on your experiences. So I think I have a couple of questions. So as far as like your AP courses in the high school, how did you kind of structure that based on each year? So like how many did you take based for like with the ones that you took, like how did you put them took it by year? And then out of the ones that you took, which ones you were able to get them the credits transferred to your undergrad program as well?
Yeah, so so the first question, I only took AP Human my freshman year. That was the only class I took. Like I said, there are certain prerequisites, like they want you to do honors chem before you can take AP Chem. They want you to do honors bio or regular bio. You just need like a recommendation from a teacher or something, if I remember correctly. So my sophomore year, I took AP Computer Science and AP Euro as my two AP courses. And then junior year, I took AP Bio, Calc AB, AP Lang, and I think that was it. Oh, and honors physics and anatomy and physiology. And then my senior year, I took chem, I took AP Lit, AP Psych, AP Environmental Science, and AP Stats. So that was just like my breakdown. And then of the ones I was able to take to college, I would say I think all of them except for Human Geo. So they have pages you can search, like if there's a specific university, like if you look up UIUC credit policy, you can see where each score translates into credit hours. So credit hour wise, I'm at 165 right now, I think, and you only need 120 to graduate. So I was around 40 credit hours in when I started college. So what that means is like you can essentially graduate early. For me, I just didn't feel the need to. I still had classes I wanted to take and requirements I had to fulfill. So I know people who have graduated a year only. I know graduating a semester only is really common too. A lot of my friends have. But yeah, so I came in with about 40, and I think that will usually do it if you want to finish college in like 3 years. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it did. So thank you so much. Yeah. And then maybe if you could help, I'm sure probably others have questions. So, like if there's any other like extracurriculars that you took while you were at high school, kind of balancing your time, how you were able to balance your time with your classes and things like that. So
yeah, definitely. And I think that's a really big thing. So I was more like club heavy. I quit music, I think my sophomore year. So I was able to take more AP classes. So yeah, I was in orchestra for 2 years, I think. And then I did just like clubs, I did Key Club, I did Aspiring Medical Professionals. So I was more just like club. I wasn't very like in the athletic world. But I know it's a really big commitment. So you have to be able to look at what's more important. And I would say, like, if you're in your junior year, and this is also what I tell my little sister, who's very musically involved. So I tell her, if it's your ACT and your SAT coming up, that's your priority. So I would say, if it's hard to handle and, you see your grade slipping, or maybe on the other side, you see yourself not being able to practice as much for whatever you're doing, like sports or music, I would say reevaluate, see where you can cut down, because junior year especially is a really important year. It helps determine, and even first semester, senior year college apps are a lot of work. And then, you can rejoin later on if you feel like it. So I would say balance is really difficult. And in high school, it's really important to learn that balance thing very early on. So, yeah. Did that help?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? And I can. Okay. And yeah, so now it's just kind of looking into the future. This is my plan for this upcoming year, and then, hopefully until like next summer. I'm looking for clinical research opportunities specifically because I've been very research involved, like I said. And I think clinical research will be like a little transition for me into the medical world officially. So I'm hoping to gain more hands-on experiences. Patient interaction is a really big one, and mentorship. So, I mean, I've heard a lot of things about what you can do in your gap year. I know people who are just, just looking to work, like get a corporate or like a pharmaceutical company job and like work somewhere like that. You can maybe choose to be like a medical technician or a medical assistant in a hospital, which is also something I considered. And then I kind of landed on this. This is where I'm at right now, applying, because I think it's kind of a blend of everything that I want to do, because I do love research and I want more patient interaction. You have to learn how to talk to patients if you want to be a doctor. So if you don't have that skill, it's like you're in the field, you should have it already. So hopefully I can gain that before I jump into medical school. So yeah, this is just my plan for the year. Any questions?
So like, where are your career goals right now? Are you planning on like after medical school on being a doctor or doing research? Like, what are your goals? Like
Yeah,
future?
so this is actually something I talked to the doctor that I shadowed about. So um you can actually do research as a physician. It's just like, I think I would obviously start out as a full-time doctor because that's like the main goal. But I want to incorporate research into my career at some point for sure, because after everything that I've done, I just feel like it's so important for physicians to know, what's going on under the microscope, because it's so easy nowadays for doctors to just be like, well, you have this, just take this and you'll be fine. There's a lot more going on, and I want to be a part of the cutting edge side of it. There's technology out there that you would not even dream of. Like, I learned that there's a hospital in New York that uses virtual reality to do surgeries, and they first take like the scans of the patient, and then they do the entire surgery using the virtual reality, and then they do the real thing on the patient. So essentially they got like that practice, and like they're all good for the real surgery, because it's like a spinal surgery hospital. So these are very, very like, you have to be intricate, steady hand and all that stuff. So I mean, I just want to be part of that side of medicine. I think, the side that's changing rapidly and like growing and moving forward. So that's why I think research is so important.
Especially now that AI and all these kinds of like new
Oh yeah.
technologies like learning are there, it's a lot more appealing to join that kind of realm, which is fascinating. And I
Yeah.
think
And
your
I
informatics
love,
ties into that, right?
yes.
Your informatics
Yep.
minor. I'm sorry, minor.
No, yeah, and that's part of it, but also like um especially at U of I think we have one of the best engineering programs, and the bioengineering major is doing the coolest stuff. Like, you build your own, like robots and like things that like your like senior design projects are like so cutting edge. And I mean, it's just cool to witness and like hopefully be part of that someday. So yeah, I definitely want to do research.
Awesome.
Any questions on this? This is not really high school based, but
Yeah. So you currently have done research, right?
yeah.
Yeah, would you like to talk more about what research you've done?
Yeah, so I started research when I was right after my freshman year, so the summer after, and I was working at Rush University Medical Center, and I learned very foundational level biological wet lab work that I did there. That was kind of like the launch pad into doing even cooler stuff. So once I got to campus, my summer was very, very enriching. I had a great mentor who I'm still in touch with now. He was, like always backing me with like, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. And he was always, encouraging me. And even though sometimes I felt like I had no idea what I was doing, I always had that support, which, sometimes you're like, why are you supporting me like this? I don't know how to do this. But it paid off because in the end I had like the most amazing experience. And then in school, when I came back to campus, I landed an interview with the lab on my first day back because I was like, well, I have all of this experience. And it was kind of impressive. You have something to show for yourself. And then COVID hit, and then I kind of lost my momentum a little bit, like so many other people did. But I was able to do remote data analysis work um, for Rush, so like the same lab, and I did that, and then we got a publication on that, which was really cool. And then I moved back to school August of 2020, and I interviewed with a different lab, and this was a lab in the bioengineering department, so way more funding to say the least, but also they have way cooler facilities. And the work I was doing there was actually stem cell culture. So I was working with real mouse stem cells and growing them out for experiments. And we are running experiments on them. And then, yeah, so I did a lot of work with that. I actually talk about it a little bit on my next slide. This is, like I said, just some stuff I've done. And the picture over here is me representing my campus lab at a research fair. This was a stem cell work, and this was just us talking a little bit about it, trying to recruit all of these undergrads. And then, yeah, so that was last semester. And now I'm writing my senior thesis for this lab, which is kind of like an informal publication. It's like, if you were to get published, what would you write? And it's like a 20-page paper. And then there's like this committee that sits there and grades you on it essentially. But yeah, and then I'm also part of an RSO on campus. It's a biochemistry, molecular biology RSO. And then the lab that I'm currently in writing my thesis for, I like got a fellowship last summer to work here. So I essentially got paid to do research, and it was great because I love it. And yeah, so these are just some things that I've done, but like I said, I wanted to keep it super informal. So any questions at all, please just shout.
Yeah, so like one person was curious to know how exactly you would go about finding these opportunities because getting research obviously looks, great on your college app. It allows you to indulge in the field more. So like how do you go about finding these opportunities?
Yeah. So 2 words, cold emailing. It's not like always very explicit, like application, you can apply here for research and we'll place you in a lab. Although you may go to a school where they do that and you're very lucky, but at my school, it's the faculty is massive and it's hard. So I sent out, I think my freshman year, I was applying for the summer. I sent out maybe like 50 emails to professors. And that was when I knew I would be home in the summer. So I applied to Chicago, like in the city, like UIC, Loyola, Rush, Northwestern, and kind of just saying, well, this is me. I'm a freshman or whatever year you're in, and I'm majoring in this. And I want to be part of your lab because I found etc. interesting, like you would have to do a little bit of research on the professor, and you have to look at what they're up to, what their recent publication was about. Like I read that your most recent publication is about this, and I'm really interested in this. And I know, because my RSO deals with exactly this, is how to encourage freshmen and sophomores to apply to get research. It's a little bit intimidating, because sometimes you feel like you're like, well, I haven't done anything. What do I talk about to get research when I haven't done anything? And you really just have to sell the fact that you're interested and you're willing to learn, because a lot of professors, their main job is research, and they teach on the side. So you have your lectures for like intro level classes, but then you also have professors that are like required to teach a class, and they're like, oh, okay, I'll teach this class as long as I get to do my research, because that's my passion. And those professors are the ones that are usually willing to mentor undergraduates and watch them grow. So definitely don't underestimate yourself. If you say, well, I don't know anything, I've never worked in a lab before, I have no lab experience. I think my first email I sent to a professor was saying I have no lab experience, and he still took me, because I said I've taken classes that deal with blah blah blah. And I, even if it's AP bio, like just say it, like you have something. It's not like you have nothing. And yeah, so there are people out there who are really willing to like talk to you and see what maybe skills you have to offer. Even if you haven't developed those skills yet, they're willing to foster those skills and grow. And I so 1000% did. Like I was a different person by the end of summer. I was like, I know so much about this, like this stuff now, like it's amazing. So yeah, definitely don't underestimate yourself.
I definitely do agree with you. Just like write down whatever experience you have, even if it might just be like the most trivial thing, because there's no harm in just cold
Shoot
emailing.
your shot.
Yeah, exactly. Give it your shot.
Yeah. So any other questions about anything? Research?
So you also did research in the engineering department, right? Like in the bioengineering department.
Yeah.
So it is possible to, go, because I know that U of I is divided into different colleges. Like I know there's the College of Liberal Arts and Science and the Granger College of Engineering. So it is possible to do research between different schools, right?
Totally. Oh, 1,000,000%. I applied to a bio lab because I switched labs after my sophomore year after COVID, and then I just kind of applied because I was like, I'll just go for it. This lab, actually, the one I'm in right now, the bio one, it had a posting out, so it was like in some newsletter, and it was like, we're looking for undergraduates to join our lab with this certain set of skills. And up until that point, I had gained those skills. It was like cell culture and like tissue imaging and like PCR and stuff like that. So that was all stuff I was familiar with. And I was like, well, it's a bio lab. There was a little bit of doubt in my mind, like maybe they won't take me just because I'm MCB, but not true. They were like, wow, you check all the boxes, and that's what they're looking for in the end. So if you have the skill set, they really can't say no to you, honestly, just because of your major.
Yeah, as long as you have the skills and the knowledge, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what major you are.
And I did a little research on my lab, and I noticed that everyone in the lab was bio-y. So I was a little bit like a little scared. I was like, I don't know if I'll get it, but it worked out. Like I said, don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Exactly. Any other questions? Okay. That's really all I have. It was kind of a long discussion, but I'm glad. I just had one little slide here. It was like, where is it? Don't forget to have fun. This is this is just me, like, reminding you guys that this is your career. It's really important, but take time for your hobbies. I really love to cook, so I included some cute little pictures of like stuff I've made.
Looks so
Um, my like friends and family. Your friends become your family in college. I will say that you literally live with them. So definitely, you know, be social. We are social animals. You know, we love hanging out with our friends and, you know, having a good time. So school is important. Don't let that slip, but
yeah.
make time. Balance is key. I think that's the theme here.
Yeah, it's like one of my teachers once told me it's like high school is not about, you know, the grades and stuff and checking all the boxes, but it's about the memories that you make in
Oh,
school. So,
totally. Yeah,
so
and college, I always hear that you will maybe you won't miss high school, but you will always miss college for the rest of your life. So
Hi,
mhm.
there are some questions in the chat box. Could you please answer them?
I can't. Dhruv, can you read them off, please?
Yeah,
Thank you.
so one person wrote, I don't know if you would know a lot about this, but how much would the tuition be overall for a pre-med student? I don't
So
know
at
if
U of I, at U of I specifically, it's less than if you were a Granger College of Engineering student. I believe it's like 32K for me a year.
Mhm.
For College of Engineering student, it's like 35, so not too much of a difference. I could be wrong. Maybe those numbers have changed, but
Yeah, it
that's
all varies. Yeah, I'm, you know, not sure either, but
yeah.
the
And
number.
these are in-state costs. Sorry.
Mhm.
Any other questions through?
Yeah, so, you know, I was curious to know myself why you chose to study molecular and cellular biology over all these other kinds of pre-med majors. Like, I know there's neuroscience, I know there's chemistry and genetics. So, like, why'd you choose the biology?
Let's go back to this. Well, it honestly, sorry, has to do with my visits here at U of I were very, very enlightening, in which I learned a lot about MCB and just like what it entailed. I think the advanced MCB classes have been some of the most interesting classes I've ever taken in my life. I just took a class on virology, which is super relevant. And you know, it's really the top of the top people who are teaching you, because my professor is the same guy who developed the COVID testing. If you guys know, U of I has a homegrown testing procedure with the saliva PCR, and the guy who taught me virology in MCB 493 was the guy who created it, and he was given like the governor's medallion for it. So it's, I think it has to do, I mean, you'll find this in any major, but I think specifically my interests just lie the most with MCB, because biochemistry is a little bit more math based, and there was a lot more physics, like you have to take physical chemistry and stuff like that. And then on, I think neuroscience is only a certificate here. It's not a major or minor. And yeah, I just found it more interesting than IB. I mean, ecosystems and plants didn't really interest me as much. So yeah, just go where you're interested. You'll thank yourself later when you're like chugging through all this work. You're like, well, at least I like it.
Yeah. Was there anything about UIUC that stood out to you and did like when applying to college compared
Definitely.
to other colleges?
And I know it's like a big, you know, thing. Like I'm gonna end up at U of I like everyone else.
Yeah.
And I heard that a lot my senior year of high school, like applying. Um, but you know, like I said, the visits, they're so important. I visited and I immediately was like, I literally remember telling my dad, and not like a cliche, like at all. I was like, Dad, I literally see myself walking with my backpack on the street. Like I see myself here.
Mhm.
And it was, I think, between U of I and Loyola for me. So in the end, I just went with the feeling that I got. And I was like, well, I just really liked the vibe I got on campus. I think, you know, sometimes when you go visit somewhere, you think, well, I just need to like get a good feeling there. And that's what happened with me. And really that I think everything between U of I and Loyola, like in terms of academics, was the same. And I would say I don't regret choosing U of I. I love it here. And don't be, you know, swayed because you're like, well, everyone goes, yeah, it's a really big school. You might not even see the people that you don't want to see. Like, so don't let that sway you.
Yeah. it's really important to take those college visits just so that you know, like you said, you feel the vibe of the campus.
Yeah, that's so important. There were campuses where I was like, wow, I just don't feel, I don't see myself here. I don't get a good feeling. So,
Right. Yeah, for sure. One student again, it's the same student who was interested in genetics and pursuing genomics. So, the student wanted to know whether he or she should study genetics, should major in genetics, or major in molecular and cellular biology as an undergraduate. So, what are your thoughts on that?
um, what, so are those two majors? Like you're deciding between two majors or,
I believe so.
okay.
I believe. I think that's what the students
Well,
like.
so my thoughts would just be like, if genetics is a major for you, which that's really cool. I don't think I've heard of that, but I would say MCB is more all encompassing. So it's not just genetics, it's looking at tissues, we're looking at prokaryotes, eukaryotes, we're looking at viruses, bacteria, and all that's the good stuff. So if you like the more broad perspective, then molecular and cellular biology is, I would say, if that's more interesting to you, then go do it. If you're specifically interested in genetics and genomics and that side of things, like DNA and like how information gets translated and transferred through organisms, that stuff, if that's an option and you think that's way cooler, then go for it. But MCB is just more like all encompassing. So
Right. Yeah, MCB is a lot more broad,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Again, another person wanted to know if you could just, clarify what you plan on doing during your gap year.
Yeah.
That'd be
Yeah.
great.
So like I said, my gap year is hopefully I'm going into the more clinical side of research. So instead of cells, I want to work with people. And there are positions like that. So like clinical trials, you work with people. And I feel like that's kind of why I wanted to get into it, because I see like, the vaccines coming out and, they have to test it. And these clinical trials just seem like a great place to get your hands dirty, or like working with people. Finally, I'm kind of done with cells. I love, cellular biology research, but I want to work with people now. And I think this is like a good mix of the things I like. So that's why I'm choosing it.
Yeah. Another quick question that came up in my mind was like I know that like a lot of colleges these days, like you have your Common App essay where you just talk about, yourself and who you are. And then like I know UFI for sure has the supplemental essay where it asks you to explain your interest in the major that you selected. And I know that can be a daunting task, especially if you don't know what you want to do. So like, how did you exactly show your interest in the major that you selected when writing those essays?
So like I mentioned, the cadaver experience for me, that was it. That was like the moment where I was like, okay, I genuinely really like this. But I know there are times where you're like, well, I don't have like a moment like that. I'm still figuring things out. And that's 1000% totally fine. Like you just have to show that, I've tried. Like I've tried to like things, and I know what I don't like. So I want to get into it.
Right.
And it's hard because I know like college apps these days are so like, well, I have a patent and I did this and I'm, like already so accomplished. You're 18 years old. Like you can't be that accomplished. Like it's great if you are, but not everyone is. And it's totally fine. Like you have years and years to get to that point.
Right.
So, so I think, just work with what you have. And, a great tip that I got for writing my essay, and even for my personal statement for medical school, I will be using this technique. It's just to like take different parts of your life. Like it could be like the sport that you're doing and like a class you're taking, and just make like a web of like all of the things that contribute to who you are as a person, like what you do, what you like, what you enjoy, and make a web and try to connect all of those things. And once you find the relationships between those things, there you'll have like more of a story to tell. So it's not like you don't have anything to say, you don't have anything to offer. That's not true. You are special. But you can tell a story, you can spin it in a way where you show who you are, even if you don't have like that I know what I want to do experience. So don't be disheartened by that, because it's so, like you said, it's so daunting nowadays. I know kids are like doing crazy things, and it's fine. You will grow into that person.
I have never thought about that before. That is an awesome suggestion. The web. I like that.
Yeah, and it worked for me. So I'm using that technique to write my personal statement. And yeah, I think it's a great, like, why do you want to do this answer, like, to that question. So
Right. Yeah. One student wanted to know if you have any advice for studying for the SAT or the ACT, since that is also another crucial part these days.
really crucial. My big tip is do both. Do both. I know they're not required, but do both. And I was like sitting there arguing with my dad, like, I don't want to take both. I just want to take the SAT. Do both. And when you study for them, these are all like practice things, they come with practice. It's really, really just nailing, like knowing how to do these things, like on like before the clock, like you have to move fast. I remember actually I took a Kaplan course, and what they do in these courses is they say, like you have a 300-point increase guarantee, right? But they
Yeah.
make these Kaplan practice tests so hard. They're like, you're reading through paragraphs just to answer one question. And that, honestly, like, it was grueling, but it was very good practice. It ended up being really good for my score in the end. So
Good.
yeah, Kaplan was good. But otherwise, just practice problems.
Yeah, you have to practice consistently for sure. So here comes my golden questions. Like I ask this at the end of every webinar. So, like, what should students be doing right now in order to, gain more knowledge in this field, of, molecular cell biology and medicine? Like, what should students be doing right now? What kinds of research, extracurriculars, what kinds of things could they do?
So for specifically pre-med, I would say take the classes that pertain to it. I would say anatomy and physiology, if they offer it at your school, take it a million times, like a million% take the class. I also think AP Bio and AP Chem is really important to get foundational knowledge. My first 2 years were, maybe even 3 actually, were bio and chem heavy. Then I got into the good stuff. Like, those concepts are so important to nail in. But yeah, take all the courses, and you don't have to do research in your high school career, but you can, and I know people who have. And again, that just takes cold emailing, finding a lab that interests you. I think actually the first lab that I was a part of, there was a high school student observing, so you could just go and observe. And even that is a good experience, I think, like, just to say, well, I haven't personally done it, but I'm looking to get into this technique. And even if you can like name off those techniques and like list them and say like, well, I've seen this be done before, that's impressive. Like, if you're 18 years old and you come in with that knowledge, that's pretty cool. So
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, it's all about expanding your horizons
Oh
in
yeah.
high school. So yeah,
Don't let it stress you out.
yeah, it's just, make the most of it. And like you said, like extract those specific moments, which like you said with AP computer science, right? Like you didn't like it,
Yeah.
and that really
And
narrowed
I talked about
it.
yeah.
And then on the other hand, when you took anatomy and physiology and you had that lab experience, that was like a pivotal part of your life, like it literally changed the course of like what you wanted to do. Just trying to extract those kinds of moments is definitely something that I took away from this webinar. And once again, I thank you so much for taking time to talk to us about what you're doing and your experiences, and giving such amazing advice for us. And if everyone could give a virtual round of applause for Shreya, that would be awesome.
Thank you. And Dhruv, you're doing great. This is an awesome initiative, and I'm really, really impressed with this whole thing you have going on. So
Thank you.
that's
I
awesome.
appreciate it so much.